Bum, 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 bum. All right, guys, what's going on? We're here. We're live. Welcome to a brand new Poker Live podcast. My name's Shaun Deeb, aka Chicago Joey, coming to you still not in the home studio. I'm out here in Irvine, California, doing podcasts here for a couple days. Joining me today on the podcast is a woman who recently wrote a post that has taken the poker world by storm. She made some sexual harassment and racism allegations during her time on Poker Night in America, a television show here that airs on CBS Sports. And she made some allegations. The allegations were then denied on the other side of things by Nolan Dalla, by Shaun Deeb, who was on the podcast yesterday, and I believe also by Chris Hansen. I don't know if I've read an official statement from him. And we want to have her on the podcast. We want to get in more depth about what she said. She also has some evidence of some text message conversations that will back up her claims. And yeah, we're just going to talk to her and we're going to see what happens. Guys in the chat, we are live streaming this. So please, we're going to ask to keep the chat today, not the usual type of dumb comments, the trolling comments we usually get. And please keep the chat clean today, guys. And moderators, you can insta-ban anyone for life from the chat and they'll never be allowed back in. So let's get this going. Jaclynn Moskow, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, everyone.
All right, Jack. So people don't know about you. You've been playing live cash for a couple of years now, and that's one of the things you wrote about in your blog. And just tell people a little bit about your background real quick, and then we'll get into the allegations.
All right. Anyone who plays in South Florida has, probably spent considerable time with me playing cash games. I guess the card rooms I've spent the most time at are Hard Rock, Coconut Creek, and the Palm Beach Kennel Club more recently. I've played all sorts of stakes in various games, and I've been doing that for about 3 years. Prior to that, I went to and completed medical school. I also volunteer as faculty at a medical school where I conduct research. And my income comes from poker, live poker. I know, whatever, sometimes that's a discussion point on your show, but that's all this is about. So.
All right, that's good. So guys, if you want to find these podcasts, you can find them on iTunes. I'll be uploading this one pretty close after it is, and you can search Poker Live Podcast, and you can find it on iTunes as well for anyone that doesn't want to watch the videos or watch the YouTube. So, all right, let's get into it. So you wrote a blog post, you put it up on your site recently. So it's obviously it's a very serious allegation. So you're making allegations that have potential to ruin people's careers, make them lose their jobs, and obviously we'd like to hear both sides of the story. So let's get into your story, and let's just start from the top. We can start. You can talk about what happened. I'll follow up from there. We'll go over the evidence that you sent me over, and then we'll ask some other questions after that.
All right, sure. I'm sure a lot of you have read my blog. This is something I've been sitting on for over a year and debating what to do with. And ultimately, I decided that it was just disturbing me to the extent that I wanted to release my story. And I passed up money in order to do that. And I put myself out there, of course, for endless criticism and trolls, which is fine, but more concerning, possible lawsuits against me. And I did all this because I felt I was protected, because I have not said anything that is not true. And libel, now that we're talking live slander, sorts of allegations can only be made when somebody is presenting or discussing things that are inaccurate or false. And because I have not done that, I feel comfortable discussing this. And that's why we're going to look at some text messages between Chris Capra and myself. We can talk about who he is, why I was talking to him at the heart of all of this. Yeah, we'll get into it.
Well, one thing I wanted to ask you is about, you mentioned the litigation. So I believe it was posted yesterday that there was a lawyer, I don't know her specific name, but there was a lawyer who has been taken up on their side of things. And I've been talking to some people I've been talking to people basically since you wrote the blog post, since I knew I'd have you on the podcast. I've been on the phone, been texting, been calling, been getting people's opinions who are much smarter than me about these particular subjects. And a couple people brought up to me is that, is she worried about anything potentially coming from this? Obviously, you've written a blog post, but more things might be said during this podcast that might potentially lead to something in the future, especially if it goes to court, if there's litigation, if there's lawsuits. And I guess, so how worried are you about something like that taking place?
I'm not naive. I am a well-educated person with a lot of well-educated friends, not to equate education with intelligence, because it's not what I mean to imply, but I do have a lot of friends that are attorneys, and I've, had people with strong backgrounds in law, and one person specifically who has done a lot of work with libel and slander cases, kind of guiding me along the way. Before I posted my blog, I was told, make sure, you say there, in my opinion, or from my perspective, or things that kind of cover you. And so I did that. And I'm not concerned. I keep getting the same advice repeatedly, which is, as long as you're telling the truth, you're protected. And as long as everything you say is factually accurate these guys, who am I going up against? I'm going up against big names that are well connected, that have connections with a lot of money. I grind live 510 in South Florida. I have $200K plus in student loan debt. Am I equipped to battle these guys without, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but the main point here is that they sent me a letter from a lawyer with an offer, and that rather than accept that offer or lawyer up myself and litigate, I chose to instead come forward. And so when I made the choice to come forward and post that blog, I made the choice knowing that I was opening myself up to a lot of potential absurd possibilities. And again, the main thing that keeps me feeling safe is that I know it's the truth. Right. So, I mean, that's really my answer to that.
All right, well, let's get into it. So you start your blog post, and it goes back. The incident happened in November 2014 is kind of when the events started taking place. And I guess you can start from there. So 2014, Poker Night in America up in Pittsburgh. And I guess you can go from there.
Right. I was invited by Nolan Dalla to attend Poker Night in America in Pittsburgh. I've read Nolan's response to, I guess, my allegations, and later on we can discuss that. I have some bullet points on my computer responding to a lot of the things he said that were very inaccurate. But when I got there, it was made crystal clear to me that I wasn't really welcome there. I did pay to fly there by myself, which I later learned is not the norm on the show. It sort of says it all. My very first conversation with Todd Anderson, he just looked me in the eye and he said, "Why are you here?" And he could be very abrasive. If you know him, you probably know that. And he said, "Does Nolan have a thing for you?" or something. And that kind of set the stage of why I was there. That turned out to be why I was there, because Nolan had a thing for me and had expectations and hopes that something would materialize while I was there. And that's, to my understanding, at this point, based on the comments that have been made to me and based on what occurred in Pittsburgh.
All right. So when you say that, is there other interactions you two have had in the past, text messages, emails? Because, I mean, from my experience, usually there's something that leads up to that.
Sure. I had even met Nolan previously at the World Series of Poker 2014 when I had gone out there to play some cash games. There's tons of communication between myself, between Nolan, between Capra, between Anderson, between this HR guy, Marco Leal, between attorneys for the show. If we sat here and went through every single email and piece of communication, I'd be here all day, and quite frankly be boring, because most of it is not scandalous. One thing Nolan says in his response to, my post is that somehow I magically appeared in Florida sitting at the table and he had no idea I was there. And I just laughed and, I looked down at my phone and I went, wait a minute, I have a text from you telling me like what time to show up that day. Like, I mean, these are things that just so clearly be proven to not be the case, but I don't know why he said that per se. But like anything that we feel is super relevant, we can pull up the emails, texts, or I guess I have a few Twitter messages, etc. But most of it's not.
Well, obviously, I know we've talked about this before, and I know obviously you're speaking with the lawyer as well. So there's some things that you might want to present. There's some things that you might not want to present or talk about. So if there's something that comes up and you don't want to talk about it or you don't want to get into it, just let me know. And
that's fine. Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, there are certain pieces of evidence that I really wanted to bring today that I'm being told are not appropriate at this time. But I'm giving you some good stuff, and I hope that everyone that looks at it can see how clearly it demonstrates that what occurred was not something I just made up out of the blue recently, that it's something I'm looking at the text messages now. We started discussing on Thursday, November 13th of 2014, and that I have messages where Capra, who witnessed Nolan Dalla sticking his head into my chest, and Capra cheered him on and was like, yeah, whatever, like at the bar, where he apologizes to me for, and I'm going to have to look at his exact wording right now. I don't know if he said instigating it or whatever it is.
All right, so we'll get into those text messages.
Yeah.
Let me get to that part of the story, and then we're going to pull some of the text messages. So you're mentioning a couple names for people out there that aren't aware. Nolan Dalla and Todd Anderson. They're both I believe, co-founders of the show Poker Night America. I've had Todd on the podcast a couple times, and we talked about that.
Todd is like the producer, founder. Prior to Poker Night, I guess he did the Heartland Poker Tour. They brought in Nolan as the creative director. Nolan has been like a really big name in the poker industry for decades. He wrote Stu Unger's biography. He has been present at, I don't know the exact amount of WSOPs. It's incredibly, kind of the liaison between like the WSOP and the media. He makes a lot of decisions about what airs on TV, from my understanding or from what I've been told, and does interviews with players. I'm not a tournament player, so there's most of you watching probably know a lot more about his role at the WSOP than I do. Yeah, that's Nolan, and he was involved in Poker Night, from my understanding, because of his ability to add to bringing in interesting characters and making the cast, one that people would want to watch on TV. Chris Hansen, who I guess we'll discuss at some point, is the on-screen host for this show. Okay. And then Chris Capra, who, my messages with him are the heart of what we're going to discuss today. Chris Capra is a representative from 888 Poker. At the time that I did the show's funding came from 888 Poker. 888 Poker was their sponsor. And so while I was on set, I kind of got this air that Capra was like, in a sense, like the principal or like in charge. Like they had to kind of like ask him, if a lot of things were okay, or he kind of was calling the shots. Like he paused everyone and he said, okay, this is what you're going to tweet, and these are the hashtags to use. And it makes sense, because who's going to be the person in power? The person with the money. And Chris is the liaison between 888 Poker and Poker Night. And so he had the money. And so he was the person that, that sort of, to me, felt like he had significant power over both the show and constant relationship with the people involved in the show. And that's why I chose to discuss what occurred with him, rather than directly address parties 2 years ago.
All right, so the next part of the blog post, and this is where the text message starts. We got a lot of comments in the chat today, guys, and we're trying to get to some of the questions and comments over time. But I want to save the text messages for the parts of the blog post here that we mentioned. So I just want to go through the story, because some people out there, they might not have read the blog post. The blog post is in the description.
I understand. You're right. I should have given a better overview of the blog post.
The next part you talk about is Chris Hansen. So you mentioned Chris Hansen, the host of the show, came up to you and made a racist comment and he looked you
I
in the
mean,
eye.
I approached him at the bar, and I made a comment about how I had spent a significant amount of time talking to I talked to some poker players that were there, and a lot of them were busy doing interviews. This was at the bar before we filmed any poker. They were doing interviews on camera, like pre-game interviews, and some people were busy drinking, and there might have even been people playing OFC at the bar. They definitely were at the hotel later, and I met some poker players, and then I spent a lot of time talking to people that work behind the scenes. I talked to cameramen, I talked to sound technicians, I talked to the guys that lug the poker table in and are in charge of making sure that it ends up being streamed, etc. I don't know, I thought that was interesting to talk to those kinds of people. It's just sort of in my character to be rather outgoing in those kinds of situations and approach people. And so when I got to Chris Hansen and met him, I said to him, everyone who works behind the scenes, all these people at the show that work for the show are so nice. And he just looked me straight in the eye, and he said, no, the thing about poker night that makes it so great is that there's no Jews. Every other show on TV has Jews. And I guess he's waiting for me to respond or agree with him and be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I'm not sure. I don't know what he expected my response to be at that point. Mm-hmm. All I can say is that I'm from South Florida. So I grew up in South Florida and I live in South Florida now. And while Jews are indeed a minority, they aren't, it's not as noticeable when you're in South Florida, There's certain parts of the country where there are higher, percentage of Jewish population. And so it's only really been a handful of times in my life that somebody made a comment that I perceived to be truly anti-Semitic, and I can take a joke. Again, anyone who spends significant time with me anywhere and at the poker table has probably heard me make jokes about Judaism or say oh, my hair's not straight today. I brought out my Jew fro. Make kind of a joke. But what he said didn't have any sort of tone of a joke. It didn't have any sort of inkling of being ha ha ha. It was just said so matter of factly.
So one thing I want to bring up too is that some people in the chat. So some people thought that maybe you may have misunderstood him, but you did confront him later on about the comment that he made to you, correct? Just reiterating or making sure that this is what he said, correct?
Correct. I did. I went up to him and I said, hey, do you remember when we were talking about, what made poker night so great? And you said there were no Jews. And he goes, yeah. I said, well, I just wanted to let you know I'm Jewish. Mm.
So when he made that comment to you, did anyone else overhear him make that comment to you when he said it?
I'm not sure. I can't say for sure. Not that I've been told at this point. I don't think so. Okay. But I actually have not heard him disclaim making the comment either. So I'm, also being careful about, I had said in my blog that if anyone claimed I was publicly being dishonest, I would release relevant documents. Hansen hasn't at this point said, hey, I never made those comments. So, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt that maybe he does want to come forward and discuss making those comments. He is from North Dakota, I believe. Todd's from North Dakota. I don't know. I haven't looked at, looked up the percentage of, the population of North Dakota that's Jewish. I can tell you it's a lot lower than South Florida. And I'm not saying that this is in any way an excuse for his comment. It just might be insight into why perhaps he is an ignorant person, in my opinion. So.
All right. Let's move on here from that point in time. And then, so you said later that night you received an email addressed Darling and advising you to arrive on the set next day ready to play.
Yeah, if someone wants to see that later, we'll pull that up. Nolan Dalla sent me an email. He addressed it Darling, and he told me what time to be there and to be ready to play, etc.
Okay, so let's. Anything else? I guess from that part in time, let me just go ahead and make sure. I just want to. I'm going over the blog post, guys, because I just want to bring up some of the things. I just want to maybe get a little more information on each part that happened, and just to clarify exactly, what took place in a little bit more detail here. And next day you showed up on set as per Dalla's instructions, And then you said that the first communication was with Todd Anderson, and you got another vibe of you don't belong there again as well.
Right. I flew to Pittsburgh. I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but I certainly expected people to act professionally, and I certainly expected to, at a minimum, maybe not be made like have anyone go extensively out of their way to make me feel welcome, but I was coming there to play on their show, so I wouldn't have had any expectation of being mistreated. And I walk into the room, Todd rolls his eyes. He's like, I just don't have room for you on the show. You can play until Gavin gets here. Gavin was busy getting his makeup done. They had decided he was going to be dressed as a zombie that day, and so he was a few hours late. And I think Shaun Deeb had posted something recently saying that he thought that I had showed up with like some sort of attitude that I like was entitled to be on the show or something. I showed up with an invitation to play on the show. And so, yeah, when I was met with, this hesitation from everyone, like, you shouldn't be on the show. Why are you here? I was obviously taken back because that wasn't what I expected to walk into. But again, that's not the meat of why we're here today. And then that doesn't even merit really a gigantic complaint. It's, I've said it before, it's at their discretion who they put on the show and for what amounts of time.
Okay. So after that, you talked about, after the show wrapped up, there was a night out in which you talk about Nolan Dalla. He put his head into your chest, I believe is how you wrote it. So you talked with Nolan, and
after I approached Chris Hansen and let him know that I was Jewish, because I was angry at this point, and I was like, the show and this entire experience has been a disaster, and I'm a confrontational person. Maybe not publicly, we'll get to that later, because I have some text messages where I say, I'm not usually one to be a rat, and I'm not usually one to blow up situations out of proportion, but I did decide I was going to individually confront them. At that point in time, individual confrontation is what I wanted. And so I confronted Hansen. Sorry, I made the mistake of looking down at my phone for a moment. I won't do that again. So I confronted Chris Hansen, and then I decided I was going to confront Dalla, and I went up to Dalla, who was at a different side of the bar, and I let him know that, Todd had said to me, "Why are you here? Does Dalla have a thing for you?" And that's when he said, and I quote, "I do." Followed by, "I have wanted to do this for a long time." And then, "Hey, watch." And at this point, the people that were around and that gathered to watch were Chris Capra, representative from 888poker.com, and a guy named Mike. And all I know about Mike is that he has long hair and that he works behind the stage, behind the scenes, for the crew. I don't know his last name. I know he witnessed the event. I obviously have been hoping he would come forward and say that he remembers witnessing this event. And if for some reason he's watching, I ask you to come forward. And Capra was cheering Nolan on, and Capra was, cheering him on. Afterwards, Nolan put his arm around me and let me know that he had omitted a piece of a toast he had previously given, that where he decided he says to me, the quote was, "I was going to say something pretty disgusting about you during that toast, but I decided not to because you probably have to deal with that sort of thing all the time." And yeah, that happened all within the same time frame. My significant other at the time was on the other side of the bar. I think he was talking to some players from New Jersey that 888 had sent over. Maybe they won their seats online, I believe. And he came up to me eventually. Nolan was still there. Nolan made a very awkward comment to him, said to him, like, "Oh, it's not easy having a hot wife. I've had one for many years." There's a lot of Chris's in this story. Chris Hansen, Chris Capra, the boyfriend's name, also Chris. So Chris had no idea why this guy's making the statement. He thought it was weird. I took him aside and I let him know what had just occurred. We decided we were going to leave the bar. it was pretty close to bar closing time anyway, actually, at this point, and most people left the bar pretty soon after that.
Does anybody else there witness that live besides, you said Chris, you said Matt, your boyfriend didn't see it, you told him about it after the fact. Was there anyone else at the bar? Or, I mean, was there bartenders there, people working? I mean, was anyone else there?
I don't know who was watching. I assume somebody else saw it. I mean, it was sort of like there were people everywhere. It's a loud bar. Everybody's drinking. Everyone's taking shots. Chris Capra from 888 Poker had come up with this thing from his fraternity called a Chili Willy, where people do shots of alcohol up their nose. And so, you know, everyone's at his persistence taking shots of alcohol up their nose, and there's just like a lot of wild chaos and drinking everywhere. And I don't know. I don't know who else saw it. If somebody else saw it, again, I ask you to please come forward.
Well, okay, so let's get into the text message you sent me over here now, because now the text, this is kind of what the text messages are about with Chris Capra. So let me pull these up on screen here.
Okay.
Let me see if we can make this clear for people. All right, so I just want to show the top one, and there's a bunch. I'll just scroll through it. I'll go to some relevant parts here. So, this is Chris Capra from 888. You guys have some discussion in here, and we will go through things. We'll go to the relevant part, which is.
I'm trying to see what you see, but it might screw up my video.
No, I got to present it to.
All right. Okay.
Present to everyone. All right, cool. All right, so Monday, November 17th, you sent a message. Awesome meeting you. Just want to clarify something about you not benefiting from 888 joining Red Chip. And
right, and that's not something relevant.
Right. Just want to read the text here. Go to find the relevant part here.
That's fine.
Okay. I hear from Deeb and Mueller that Anderson didn't think I was even invited to play both days. I have emails from Dalla proving otherwise, just a big mess. And since you are the most mature professional of the bunch, you might want to take note.
I mean, it's pretty sad that the most professional person of the bunch is the person encouraging everyone to do shots of alcohol up their nose and cheering on Nolan Dalla as he sticks his head into my chest. And yet I still felt that he was the one that was the most professional out of all of them. So.
All right. Might want to take note that while I'm not going to cause a big stink about Dalla sticking his head in my boobs at the bar, or Chris Hansen telling me the thing that makes the show so great is that there are no Jews involved, a lot of other people would be making a huge deal out of these things. Most female poker players wouldn't be okay with having to put up with being groped, and anti-Semitism is never taken lightly. Chris
Sure, and before we get to his response, we can pause. A lot of people will criticize me and say, oh, you know, you're going back on your word. You know, fuck you. I don't care. At that point in time, I didn't want to make a big stink. Do you think, you know, this hasn't been fun for me the last few days. To anyone that thinks that I'm enjoying this in any way, or that, you know, I'm doing this because I want all of you guys here listening to me. Yeah, I want you to hear the story. I want you to hear what happened about these people. I'm not doing this for me. I'm not doing this for me in the sense to benefit me in some, like, you know, if I wanted to benefit financially, I would have just taken their money. And so Capra put me in a spot where I felt like he was also a person of authority. The very, very first night we met, we're sitting at a bar, and he makes this statement that 888 Poker was looking to sponsor somebody else. At the time, they were sponsoring in New Jersey, Jessica Dolly. And he looks me in the eye and he says, a female doctor might work. Okay? So making that statement puts me in a spot where I feel like, even though it's like not likely, you know, I don't have this big tournament track record, which is what people look for in poker. He still put it into my head. He put the thought into my head. And so now every time I have a discussion with him, in the back of my mind, I have this notion that he had put into my head that there was a possibility of me working with his company down the road in a professional manner. And so my text messages to him were said in part with that state of mind. And I just wanted to clarify that. And whatever, judge away.
All right. He texts back. He says, hi, Jaclynn. I apologize for what happened at the Poker Night America event. I know that I instigated a bit of the wildness that happened in Friday night, but the remarks from Chris and the actions of Nolan are inexcusable. You text back, said, thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. Right.
Instigated, meaning, you know, he was at the bar cheering Nolan on while he put his head into my chest. In my opinion, that's why he's apologizing for instigating the wildness.
All right, you're coming back.
We can go on. Yeah.
Okay, you're coming back to him. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. Nolan is a great contact in this industry and promising me the ability to play in both the female game in Florida and the other game in Florida too. So I have to keep things smooth with him. I'm not going to approach him about his drunk antics. Really looking forward to Florida and playing my A game this time. Okay, so my question is, I think most people's question at this point in time is why would you want to go back? So you deal with something like this happening, and it's something where, why didn't you post about it then? Why didn't you talk about it then? Why don't you? I mean, some people are mentioning there's a potential authorities getting involved in something like that. This is a very serious thing a man does to a woman, especially, I mean, in any situation. So why would you want to go play the Florida game? Why would you want to do all these other things? Put yourself in this situation again?
Those are valid questions. I appreciate an inquisitive mind. I think you should question anything and everything. And I think anyone that's jumped to, any conclusions prior to, I don't know, hearing from both sides and questioning things it's not optimal. So yeah, I mean, those are valid questions. Until you've been in this spot and been in my shoes, I don't know that I can give anyone, what they want to hear as a convincing answer. I was genuinely looking forward to participating in this all-female episode and promoting women in poker, which is something I've been passionate about from day one. I'm generally the only female playing 5-10 and above at the casinos that I play at in South Florida. There once in a while, Jessica plays sometimes, Jessica Dalla in South Florida. However, most of her time is spent on the road in tournaments, and there aren't other, whatever you want to call me, regs, grinder, pros, whatever, regularly playing these games. And I'm usually, when I do play at Hard Rock, I'm in this back room, the high stakes room, which is silly. It's, one of the games, has $100,000 at the table, on the table, and one of the games, it's a 5-10 game, but that's where they put all the games together. And I'm often the only female back there, and anyone that plays there can attest to that. And so I've always been really passionate about getting more women involved in poker. I've told many women that, I don't discuss strategy, but as an exception, I will point women in the right direction. I have emails going to females that have asked me, look, I play 1-2, do you have advice? And I've said, yeah, these are resources I would recommend. This is how I worked on my game. And I always give them the disclaimer that I don't give the same advice to men. And why? It's because I feel that females are underrepresented in this industry, and that the industry as a whole is a ton of gain from this vastly undertapped market. So part of why I wanted to continue to play on the show is to be a part of that female game, which included some people that were already friends of mine and some people that I met through the show. I also, I just wanted things to be smooth. I didn't want to, what occurred, I didn't want it to have occurred. I spent a lot of time trying to sweep it under the rug and tell myself, it wasn't that big of a deal, or that I could just write it off, or that, speaking up, who's going to listen to me? All these big names are going to come out, which is exactly what happened, and say, oh, I've known Dalla for however long, and he would never do that. And that was a factor. I was embarrassed. This isn't particularly something that is fun to sit here discussing. And yeah, I wasn't sure what sort of bridges it would burn by coming out. Upon further reflection, over the last year, it occurred to me, I can still show up at any card room I want in South Florida, sit down and play cash. So if coming out with this story somehow prevents that, then yeah, I have a problem. But I don't see how that could ever prevent that. Maybe nothing would surprise me at this point, though. So maybe those are some answers to your question.
That makes sense. I mean, it's not necessarily my question. It's the question that I've read out there the most, and I know that's what a lot of people are wondering. Just why would you want to put yourself back in this situation? I actually want to go over a couple more text messages.
I had mixed feelings about it. I mean, I really did have mixed feelings about it, but I also realized it didn't seem fair to me to miss out on an opportunity just because the people that ran the show were who they are. And at this point, I felt like I was dealing with Capra the most, and he was trying to rectify things. And I guess if we go through the text, you'll even see that he said he was going to talk to Nolan and Todd. And
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a tough spot because on your end, I'm sure you were aware when you come out with something like this, as you mentioned, this is what's going to happen. You're going to have people who are defending Nolan on his side, big names in poker speaking up on his side. On your side, you might not have that same support from people, and you're going to have to deal with a lot of hatred. You're going to have to deal with a lot of negativity. And
the hatred and negativity I anticipated, and I can't keep up with all of the comments, so I haven't. I've been trying really, really hard to respond to the positive feedback, and if you've sent me a message and I haven't responded yet, I'm really sorry. I've tried to respond to all of them. There's been a lot of it, and I'm really appreciative of it. There's also been more girls than I can count off the top of my head that have contacted me and told me that they have similar stories about people in the industry, not necessarily the same characters, but people that have, one girl said, a much bigger name than Nolan Dalla, and that they don't feel comfortable coming forward with the story, that they admire my courage. It's very sad. Every single time I receive one of these, my heart goes out to these girls for having gone through it. I'm in the spot. I know what it's like. And yeah, do I wish more people felt comfortable coming forward when these sorts of situations occurred? Of course I do. That's part of the reason I did this too, to show people that, like, you can speak up, you can tell the truth, and you can handle whatever comes at you as a result of it, because getting the truth out there ultimately ended up being more important to me than anything else. And that's why I said, opted not to take the cash settlement, which again, I make point in my blog. I don't want anybody to get the misconception that, I'm just so pumped up that I can pass up 15 to 20K, which were numbers thrown out to me. That's not the case.
I want to talk about that specifically real quick, because in the blog, and I believe this was confirmed by Nolan and maybe confirmed from other people, that you were offered this cash settlement of $15,000 or $20,000. And what wasn't included in the blog was that you countered with a $100,000 potential cash settlement.
I saw that Matt Glantz. Let me pull it up. Matt Glantz said that I'm looking for it. I have so many notes on this.
So that's the question.
He said that I communicated with lawyers and that I told the lawyers I demanded $100K. Matt, try to find a documentation where I demand $100K out of a lawyer.
So you're saying that didn't take place?
I had conversations regarding amounts with people from HR, not with attorneys, and there were different amounts that were thrown out and discussed, and ultimately I decided I wasn't taking any money. So I don't know what else to tell you about that.
They gave you the offer, 15, 20,000. You guys discussed that. You discussed other numbers, but then you decided that you weren't going to take the money.
Correct. And I never wrote them back and said, I'm not taking your money. I just let their expiration date pass. I let their expiration date pass, and I said, I better get a blog up soon. And, in part just to force me to get it up soon, I was on another podcast and I mentioned that something had occurred. And soon after, Nolan Dalla puts up a video, which, we might want to pull up at some point, where he adamantly, rallies that women that have been harassed should come out and call out their perpetrators. And, a female poker player that knew about this sent this to me, and I was just like appalled. I actually laughed because I couldn't handle the hypocrisy of it. And that day I saw that was the day that I posted to Twitter, like, I'm going to be whistleblowing, because I was like, this is enough. Like, the fact that now you've not only insulted, my character enough that you're telling me that I'm making these events up a year later for whatever motivation you've decided that I have for making this up, but now you're going to go out and be so hypocritical as to urge women to come out and call their perpetrators out, when you know perfectly well, Nolan Dalla, what you did to me. And Chris Capra, you know perfectly well too, because you were there. And Anderson, you also know, because it was discussed with you in the days after the events. And I have evidence to all of these things. So, that's part. Again, I'm getting heated up.
It's a pretty serious thing, and obviously it's something that I feel like you should be like. I mean, it makes sense to be heated about this. I would be heated about this if something happened like this to me, and I'm sure many people out there would probably be even more heated about it if they're talking about it and discussing it. So
I mean, I'm trying to remain calm. I told myself before I went on this, try not to curse and be composed. But
All right, so let me show another part of the text message. I think this might be a little bit a couple days later. Let me pull this one up here real quick as well. Make sure we get this up here for everyone to see. All right, so you guys have a bunch of more exchanges. I don't think anything you would say is very relevant to the conversation. Here you ask what his email address is. He gives you his email here. I know some people maybe say, the name up there. How do you know it's the person, et cetera, et cetera?
Right. Yeah, like I said, I can pull up my old iPhone right now. We can delete his name and you can see the phone number, but I don't think that's a good idea. He's going to get a barrage of messages.
So let me find this comment here that you mentioned. I guess you talked about the patch. I'm not sure if you think the patch discussion is relevant. If it is, we can go over it. You said my point was just that when Todd made it clear to me that he didn't expect to see me in Pittsburgh, then walked down the set angry about the patch, I let all this tilt me. I just wanted things to go smoothly. When I heard rumors amongst players was that I had basically invited myself. I was appalled and embarrassed, not to mention all that other stuff that happened, which I already told you about. I thought Florida would be a great opportunity for things to go smoother. In addition to the anti-Semitic remarks from Hansen and Dalla groping me in front of others, I had Todd asking me if the reason I was invited to play was because, and I quote, Nolan had a thing for me. When I approached Nolan about this, he said, quote, yes, I do, which was basically the last thing I thought would come out of his mouth. Chris replies with, should have had Linda with you. And I don't know what that's reference to.
It's so ironic. Linda Kenny Baden is an attorney, I know you're watching, who played on Poker Night in America in Pittsburgh, and as of yesterday, released a statement that she's now the legal counsel for Nolan Dalla and Chris Hansen.
So
but
Linda,
ironically, and I apologize, I might have said your names backwards, your maiden name and your married name. I apologize. But so ironically, 2 years ago, Chris Capra's joking that Linda that I needed you at the bar with me when all this occurred, and now apparently you're representing the people that were involved with this. So,
all right, let's pull up the text message conversation here. All right, and you say ha ha ha.
Right.
I'm not generally one to make a huge deal about things or rat people out publicly.
Right.
Which is why I spoke to you about my concerns and assumed behavior would be better in Florida. Chris says it would not be the first time for men behaving badly. Does not excuse it. And I want to go back to that. So so it seems like a serious matter like this. You start off with ha ha ha. Now obviously everyone, people are going to dissect these things. They're going to go over these things. So
go ahead.
If that's a serious thing, and if you felt that strongly about the incident, I guess, why do you say ha ha at that point? Why is it a laughing matter to you?
I still felt like Chris was in a position of power over me because of the statement that had been made to me. He continued to communicate with me long after Pittsburgh. He asked me for advice about a possible affiliate that they would be working with. He reached out to me on more than one occasion, and I felt like, again, he was in a position of power over me because he had made reference to this notion that, I was going to be somehow employed by or contracted by or whatever it is in the state of New Jersey, 888 Poker. And so I guess I was trying to be a good sport or what am I, in retrospect, do I wish I had said, Chris, that's like incredibly offensive and disgusting, etc. Sure. What can I do though? These are, I'm providing you with the text messages that existed, and I'm telling you now that rather than be that girl that's laughing it off, I'm coming forward with my story instead. And if you want to judge me for not coming forward with it right away, judge away. Judge away.
Yeah, it makes sense. I guess the idea of a sponsorship, I think that's what a lot of players strive to get. They want to get a sponsorship. They want to make this money. It opens up other doors. It opens up other opportunities for, I don't know.
It's 2016. Poker isn't what it obviously was in the past. I maybe shouldn't have taken his comment so seriously when he made it to me, but he said, a female doctor wouldn't be, a bad choice or something along those words. And I believe when they had picked up Jessica, she's accomplished a lot in her poker career since then, tournament-wise. I think when she first started as a pro for them, her background was mostly in cash games, just like mine. And it didn't seem completely outside the realm of possibility that he was being, serious about this. So.
All right, let's go back to the text message. So I want to go back and just show a date here for you guys, because I heard some people in the chat talking about that. So there is other discussion. As you mentioned, you wanted to keep in touch with Chris. We're talking to him about, I understand, if you're trying to get a sponsorship, you want to stay in touch with the person. You want to have discussions. You want it to be a normal type of dynamic with that person. And you don't want it to, it definitely makes sense. So the date on this one, I believe, was Tuesday, November 18th, it appears. And then there's some other discussion, as you mentioned, the affiliate discussion in there as well.
Right.
So
yeah. He messaged me out of the blue one day saying, hey, I'm going to be having a phone call with these people. They might be my affiliate. You've worked with them in the past or spoke with them. Do you have any advice? I mean, we don't have to pull that up, but he asked me for advice. Like, yeah, we remained in communication.
All right. So let me go back down here and see this. All right. You said in Pittsburgh, Nolan said, we did not treat you right on the strip, but we'll make it up to you in Florida. I don't know why it went from that to cutting me from show. I appreciate any effort on your part to rectify this. As I mentioned in a previous text, Chris and I both really enjoyed meeting you, and you are clearly the most mature, professional, and accomplished of the bunch.
Yeah, I mean, I felt that was true. Out of that group, yeah.
And then I'll just finish up the text here real quick. Do you think it's best that I keep my mouth shut for now on Tuesday, November 18th? Do you think it's best that I keep my mouth shut for now and see if you can get me back on show, or send Dalla and Anderson email with my honest thoughts about my experience on show and with them? And I'm guessing I shouldn't stir things up. And he said, give me a few days. Let me see what I can come up with. You say, thanks so much. And some other more conversation to some photos you sent. He never texts you back, it appears. Talks about being down in Florida.
Yeah, we could go through this. It's just a little funny because it contradicts something Nolan said on 2+2. But
right. Hey, I'm down in Florida. We are streaming live from Hard Rock today. You said, hey, I know Nolan just hit me up.
Yeah, Nolan just hit me up.
Nolan hit you up and said there might be an extra seat an hour. I believe on the forum he posted that you just showed up in the game. He didn't know how you showed up in the game.
Yeah, I just showed up in the game and sat down, and he had no idea how I got there.
Right. All right, you said Chris and I are going to head over on 5. Was going to come by either way to see you guys. Thanks for hitting me up. Chris says, yeah, there are a lot of people still in the main tournament today. So we're going to have a lot of runners. We are in the Paradise Live at the Hard Rock. And let me see if there's any more information. Talk about going paintballing with people.
Something I did for the show that Nolan invited me to in Florida. So again, you don't know how I showed up at your show, but I've got a series of text messages with you, Nolan, on this phone where we discuss like where I should show up for paintball, who's going to be there, which team I'm going to be on, etc.
Right. So. Okay, so I guess for the most part that completes the message with Chris here.
Right.
And you guys talked about a little bit more about just appearance on the show, but it doesn't look like there's much more on that. So you mentioned there's texts from Nolan as well too. So are those texts?
There's another text file I sent you with more text from Chris Capra. I believe it was sent separately because I had compiled all of these before them. So if you want to pull that up open, we can.
Which one? What does it say in those text messages, Jaclynn?
It just says text with Capra too.
I think I only have a couple. I have the one you mentioned about that was shown in there.
It might have some repeat in the beginning, but if we scroll to the bottom, there's some new stuff.
I have the one about should have Linda with you, and that's the one I have here. And then I have something about showing a hand you botched against Phil Hellmuth.
Yeah, I mean.
Was that the one you're referring to?
Yeah, in that we can pull that up. I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of backlash for it, but I don't care.
Okay.
While I was in Pittsburgh, both Chris and Nolan had said to me, if you're curious about at any point what's going to, end up on the show, just ask.
Okay.
So I did.
Oh, so that's going to set up this message then. Okay.
I think
all right.
so.
I asked him, are you showing the hand I botched against Hellmuth tonight or next week? Please advise. You told me in Pittsburgh that if I checked with you, you would let me know in advance. No clue. I haven't watched the show yet. This week it airs at 9 p.m. tonight. You say I don't own a TV.
Right. I don't.
The episode will be online. I'll send you a link. He says, I don't watch TV. Just want to know if I'm going to be embarrassed nationally. And he says Phil is embarrassed on a daily basis. I don't think one bad hand will be that bad. You ask, please check with Todd for me. Different situation. Helmuth is an established and respected poker celebrity. I was invited because, quote, Nolan has a thing for me, quote, as per Todd and confirmed by Nolan. He says, it is what it is. I'm not bothering Todd with this. I will send you the link to the episode and you can see it for yourself. It airs in less than a half an hour. So I guess we have another instance of him confirming that statement.
Right. That was he's never denied any of this until now. Now I'm making it all a year later.
So you mentioned other texts you had with Nolan. Are those something that you're interested in putting out there as well, or are those text messages something that I guess you're keeping for the lawyer?
Oh, I mean, I can look for them right now if you want. It'll take me a second to pull them up. I don't know. I mean, I think anyone watching probably inherently knows that when Nolan said he had no idea how I just showed up in Florida, that's absurd. I mean, I have text messages from him saying to show up if it's super important. You know, I can try to pull them out of my computer right now and we can look at them, but I don't feel like that's at the meat of this, and I don't want to get too detracted onto these little side topics. And, you know, his response on 2+2 was very much about a lot of stuff unrelated to my claims.
Nolan's texts don't matter in this situation, but Chris's matter? Is that what you said?
Oh, no, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that Nolan doesn't say in his text messages to you, hey, it was fun motorboating you, or anything that I feel like your audience would jump at. He just says things like... I
don't think it's about jumping in. I think it adds more, you know, I guess situation like this, if you're... I feel like there would be some conversation between the two of you if something like that happened. You know, maybe you.
Right. Okay. I mean, I'm gonna look at my computer right now, and you know, I'm talking to you on a desktop. I've got a laptop here. I'll see what I have with Nolan. We can send it to you. I'm not hiding anything. I'm trying to not sit here for the next 6 hours. I don't know if the lighting is getting off right now. And go over text messages and emails and correspondence between myself, Nolan, Capra, Hansen, or not Hansen.
Well, yeah, I don't think it's about that. I think the main situation here is the comments made about Nolan and the response that he made on 2+2. You know, I guess if the idea is that he's not being honest about his response to you, well, sure. Then I feel like that's pretty important, and the text messages can then put that in place that, oh, this isn't true. So I think that's
fine. Okay, sure. I'm looking for them right now. I've got
sure.
I'm going into documents. I'm going into poker. I'm going into Poker Night in America. I'm going into text messages. Nolan texts. Let me find them, and I will send them.
Well, I guess let's go to the next thing in the blog post here. We can talk about a little bit. Which
that's fine while I do this.
What'd you say?
That's fine, yeah. I can multitask. Let's go.
All right. So you mentioned Shaun Deeb, and it seemed kind of random in the blog post. You just talked about my night back upstairs to my hotel room. I passed Shaun Deeb. Unprompted, he informed me that women will always be inferior poker players, citing you are all too emotional as his reason. Yes, the same Shaun Deeb who mockingly dressed up as a woman and played in the ladies' event at the World Series of Poker. Now, we had Shaun on the podcast yesterday. He denied the allegations. He denied this comment took place. He denied the meeting took place. Now, I guess let's talk about that just a little bit. And I mean, I guess it sets the stage exactly for the kind of a treatment you were taking at the event. But I guess why did you decide to include that in the blog post? And yeah, so I mean, he says it doesn't happen. I guess from your point of view, this is something that 100% did happen, correct? Yeah,
it happened. Shaun has a really bad memory of the timeline of events in Pittsburgh. I tried to tune in yesterday when he was on your show. Only watched about 20 minutes of it. During those 20 minutes, he said that, you know, they were so accommodating to me on the show that him and Greg shared a seat so I could play. Go online right now and try to find a video where him and Greg are sharing a seat and I'm playing. It doesn't exist because I never played while they were sharing a seat. Like, that's just another like fabrication / poor recollection of reality on his part. Why did I include it in the blog? Because it happened. As we've seen in these texts from Capra, you know, he also, you know, called me a seat stealer and yelled that at me at one point, like from across the room. I didn't include that in the blog.
Who said that to you? Shaun said that to you?
Yeah, because he felt, you know, I showed up at Pittsburgh and swooped in and stolen seats entitled to other people. And again, I showed up because I was invited. And hold on one moment. Trying to get you this email with all of my texts with Nolan Dalla.
Yeah, I guess just about the Shaun things, obviously.
About the Shaun thing, I don't know what to tell you other than that it occurred.
No, yeah, I'm just trying to go over what's in here and try to find some facts exactly, because obviously this is a he said she said type of thing. One person says this, one person says that.
Yeah, again, it's not at the heart of what matters to me about what happened in Pittsburgh. I included it because it occurred.
It doesn't. But it still matters to someone like Shaun. So when you make allegations like that against a person like Shaun, well, obviously now a lot of people are reading this, a lot of people are watching this, a lot of people.
That's fine. I made the allegation because it occurred. Shaun, I said that you made that comment to me because you made the comment to me. I don't know what else to tell you.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's all right. Like I said, I'm, comments like this sticks with someone for a long time. So I just want to, figure out more about it. And
I don't know why it's shocking to anybody that Shaun made that statement. It's strange to me that anyone would find that shocking. But
what do you mean by that?
I just from my interactions with him in both Pittsburgh, when he showed up in Florida a handful of times, I think those are the only places we've interacted. It just didn't seem out of character. I don't know. I think I just sent you an email with all of my text messages with Nolan Dalla.
Okay. I guess let's go to the next part of the blog post here. You talked about the next day. You had the air quotes pleasure of encountering Dalla downstairs at the hotel lobby. He was discussing a neighborhood that he had visited for a meal with an African-American man who was at the front desk. The man said he had never heard of the neighborhood, and Dalla responded, "Really? I would have thought you know it. It's fitted with blacks." End quote.
Phil, I don't know if I've done
filled with blacks. That's what he said. This is by you. I had spoken to this employee several times during my trip, and I developed a friendly relationship with him. He looked over at me after Dalla said this and made a face that I can best describe as, "What the fuck?" I gave him my best, "I am so sorry. This man is out of his mind" look in response.
Correct.
That's a pretty serious allegation as well, because now you're accusing him of being sexually harassing you, and then also being, making this racist comment sort of to this person.
I'm trying to pull up his response to that in his 2+2 post because it was so absurd. I had to read it like 10.
Right. Yeah, I believe he did respond.
He responded to that and said that it was at best an exaggeration and at worst a complete fabrication. I don't know what that means. I don't know if you want to chime in, or maybe somebody watching wants to chime. What does that mean?
I go into speculating. I guess I kind of, it sounds like he may have been implying he may have said something similar. He may have made some sort of joking comment like that. It may have been taken.
Maybe he's worried that someone's going to get a hold of this hotel employee and ask them, and they're going to, maybe he's worried, oh, wait, that's one of the people I haven't gone to yet. Maybe. I don't know. He's clearly gone to a lot of his buddies and said, listen, you're going to need to keep my back. And they've, from my opinion, it seems like they've said, yeah, okay, no problem. Maybe he forgot, or, I didn't tell Capra about that. I did tell Marco Leal from HR about that, but he might have just not really had a prepared defense for that. So, it occurred. I wasn't the only one there. The person I was in a relationship with was there when he made the statement.
All right, let's go down to the next comments here. It says, a few days after Pittsburgh tapings concluded, I received an email from Dalla with Anderson CC'd informing me that I can no longer play on poker night at the Florida tapings.
Right. Which, again, I had mixed feelings about. I understand it's a fair question. Why would I want to go back after all this occurred? I really had mixed feelings. I wanted to promote women in poker. It was a female-only episode. I had already told many people I'd be doing this show. I had already freely promoted it on my own social media. I had friends that were going to be playing on it. I was looking forward to it. I didn't think it was fair that I was then going to, remove myself from it because of the behavior of people, unrelated to those ladies who, were all a pleasure to play with, who many are still my friends, and who, like, I made a point in my post to say that I don't want any of this to reflect negatively upon people that are associated with Poker Night in America and did nothing wrong. And the unfortunate reality is that it probably will. And that's sad because plenty of people either didn't know this occurred or were in a spot where there was nothing they could do, or weren't there but only heard about it from me, or there's a myriad of other categories of people that at some point or another were informed about what happened or weren't informed about what happened. But now, this doesn't look good for people associated with the show. And I think that's really sad. And I wanted to make a point in my blog to say that shouldn't be the case. Because these people's behavior doesn't in any way say anything about people that, play on the show. Or
that makes sense. Yeah, a couple people in chat are talking about questions. They want interrogation. Like, I don't think you want to come on a podcast and be fucking interrogated by someone asking you these like, all right, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just trying to go by the evidence, by the facts, by what you wrote. And that's sort of the approach I'm trying to take for this guys out there in the chat. I mean, I don't know if you're looking to go on some talk with somebody who wants to like ask these type of interrogation type of questions, but I'm sure that's not what you're looking for when you're discussing the incident.
I mean, I told you before, I think you've always been a fair platform for letting people come on here, and you've always, made the correction that you don't do interviews, you do conversations. And
right.
And we're having a conversation right now about what occurred.
Right.
Are any of these people, officially deposing me? Am I in court right now?
Listen, apparently people in the chat, they that's how, if that was up to them, that's how they'd have it. So, I mean, but that's not how things work. And I personally, that's not I believe I'm just trying to hear exactly what happened, get more information.
I mean, I feel like I'm a really strong female in terms of the fact that, like, you guys can say what you want to me. You can criticize me. People that have played live poker with me will attest to how much nonsense that I have put up with at the table just to keep the live one there, to keep the fish there, to, the one, guy at the table that's making disgusting comments to me, and everyone's looking at me like, oh, please don't say anything. Please don't throw him out. He's drunk and dumping. And I'm sitting there trying to be a good sport about it. And there's a point where a line is crossed. Nobody has ever come up to me in a casino and stuck their head into my chest. The behavior of the people at Poker Night crosses a lot of lines. And that's why after sitting on it for a really long time, I decided I wasn't going to stay quiet about it anymore. I'm not really sure where that came. I'm not even sure what tangent I'm going off of right now, but this is an emotional issue for me. Go on. Just ask me your next question.
Sure. I guess the one thing a lot of people were wondering about is, why did you decide to take so long? The incidents occurred in November 2014, and just why not go with it sooner? I think you got into a little bit earlier. There's potential sponsorships. You wanted to plan potential shows, but
it was more so about. I mean, those are minor factors. They came into play, of course. But it was also about, like, just, this is embarrassing. Do you think that this is how I want to be, like, thrown into the spotlight? Do you think that I want to be thrown into the spotlight at all? Go take a look at my Twitter. I get people commenting all the time saying that I don't post enough photos. I don't post enough photos because I guess other women in poker are. And I'm not judging them by any means. Do whatever you're comfortable with. It's just not me. Like, I don't have an Instagram. I don't have a Facebook. I don't go around saying, like, look at me, look at me, look at me. I posted a photo sarcastically. There's one photo on my Twitter where I'm, like, covering my face. And it's like, here you go, guys who are asking for photos all the time. Like, Again, I'm losing my train of thought because this is a frustrating topic.
Well, I've had conversations with you in the past. I've had conversations with you and your boyfriend. We talked about how you used to be a short stacker, and so we had some discussions about that. So we've had conversations. I talk with a lot of different poker players, men and female. I feel like I'm a pretty good judge of people who are trying to elevate certain things about themselves, or trying to get themselves out there, cause certain things. And with you, over the past since I've known you, I definitely. The other side of things, I've known you as someone who is just not that type of person. So and when people have asked me about that, that's usually been my response, just from my personal dealings. Obviously, how much that matters is very debatable,
Sure.
but yeah, it's certainly not something that I don't feel like you would be seeking this type of thing, and you would be seeking, having to deal with this type of thing and put yourself out there in this sort of context. I feel like you want to be known for your vulnerability. You want to be known for your work ethic, and you want to be known for the skill that you have playing poker, independent of being a female or male. You certainly don't want to be known with someone with something
at
like
one
this.
point in time, those things were maybe considerations to me. I don't even at this point care. What are my considerations? Like my considerations are playing well, choosing good games, managing my bankroll, working on my game. Like those are the things that are important. Those are the things that actually like influence my life on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And again, there's plenty. I'm sure some of you are tuned in live regs from South Florida that can attest to that. And yeah, I dabbled with this TV poker thing, and it's sort of what in a way, what should I have expected? I've had such negative opinions about TV for so long. I have stated, rather vocally, which a lot of people think is completely absurd, that I don't watch TV. I know that this sort of thing goes on in the Hollywood industry often, and that women, in shows in other places are put in these sorts of positions, and not just in Hollywood. I mean, I could go back and tell you stories from medical school where people in positions of power did things that were sexually harassing, and that wouldn't be relevant to this. It's just that this topic certainly breaches outside just poker. And yeah, I'm stumbling on my words again because I'm just stressed out about all of this, and this isn't fun. So to everyone who thinks I'm on here because this is so fun and I'm getting so much attention and all of that, yeah, you're all professional readers, right? You read people. Does this seem fun?
Yeah, we mentioned this in text with Nolan. You sent me over a couple things. I'll pull them up. It's just a couple pages. And
yeah, I gave you what I had so far. There might be more. I can find for you later.
Sure. Or I mean, you can post them. Yeah, I mean, you can always post them someplace else too.
Sure.
Post them on your blog. Post them
I sent you some text. I have a lot of emails with Nolan. I sent you the text because I think one of them says come over now, and it was sent when he was in Florida. So that obviously is contrary to something he said in his blog. But again, that's not the heart of. There were so many things in his blog, or response rather, on 2+2 that were inaccurate. If you want me to go through the list, I have it in front of me. But
sure. Let's go. Yeah, we can go to that if you'd like to, because yeah, he made the reply. So the point of all this is you just want to get the word out there. The point of this is you just want to let people know what happened, warn people in the future if they have to potentially maybe deal with something like that. And that's the overall goal of you coming out with this, right? Is just to spread awareness that it did take place, it is taking place. And you want it to be stopped, you'd like it to be stopped, and you'd like other people to not have to go through that themselves. And if they have, for them to come forward and let people know that this is what took place.
Those are all true sentiments, and I can't force anybody to come forward, and I can't say that I don't know what to say about it. I've been contacted by a lot of women since I put up my post telling me that they have similar stories, but that they just can't come forward with them, and I understand all too well. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. I could have easily used 15 to 20K right now, and I decided not to because I wanted to come forward and tell this story. I weighed all of my options, including taking settlement money, and I decided that telling this story was more important to me. And I felt like instant relief the moment I hit publish, because I was like, all right, something that's been hanging over my head for a long time is out there now. And I can just tell you that there is some sort of satisfaction that comes with telling your story. But that's not to say that this is easy, or that that my heart doesn't go out to all the people that are afraid to come forward with stories about things like this, because it is difficult. And And everyone's in a different situation. Unfortunately, this occurs in the workplace all the time. It occurs with women who literally have no choice but to keep their mouths shut because they, are risking their careers, their livelihood, paying for their, their families, their kids, whatever, by coming forward with something that is inexcusable or harassing or degrading or, in some cases, even more extreme than what happened to me. And that's a big problem, and it's very sad. And again, I made the decision that I was coming forward with the story. So,
all right, let me show the Nolan text real quick, and then we can. I think that'll be the last what we have for here.
Okay.
You text him, said Nolan, was that regards to mixed show or all girls show too? He said both. Sorry.
Yeah, that was after he had emailed me or whatever that I couldn't come back or whatever.
Right. So he said, this is November 30th after the Pittsburgh stuff. Hi there and welcome to Florida. Can you let me know where I have to be tomorrow and when? I'll probably stop by the taping to say hi, but just in case I don't make it over to Hard Rock today, thanks. He says, sure, thanks. But this is a new phone. Who is this? Say Jaclynn Moskow. Okay, might have a spot in the game an hour from now if you're interested. LOL, you always know that I'm always interested. Smiley face. Might not be able to get over there until like 5. I will come by either way to say hi. There's a seat I'll play. Okay, stay in touch, please. We'll see how this goes. Sure, we'll be in 30 minutes, seat or not. Nothing. Yeah. December 1st, hey, can I come over to paintball, but would be arriving at like 10:20? Is that too late? Let me know if worth heading over. Smiley face. Yes, for sure. Okay, I'll head out. Lots of snowbirds in town, so not as quick of a drive as usual. See you soon. He says we will have 6 gems, 6 males. It's perfect. As you there, see you there, as you there, as you are, as you there.
Yeah, just communication between me and Nolan while he was in Florida. But somehow I showed up on the set and he has no idea how I got there.
All right, so a couple things. So he said in the blog post he had no idea how you showed up and got there. So obviously, I guess this sort of shows that.
And those are just texts. I have emails with him too. I mean.
Okay, so what I want to talk about, I guess, what people are going to say, the way that you talk, it doesn't seem like you're upset about what happened at the Pittsburgh thing. It doesn't seem.
Right. Again, I don't know what to tell people that are outraged by the fact that I kept it inside and that I tried to not make a big deal about it and that I tried to tell myself that. Like I could just brush it off and that I could just laugh it off and that I could just accept it. But obviously it was eating at me inside because I'm sitting here in front of you right now, like literally sweating, like having a hard time discussing this because it was bothering me for so long and I felt so powerless and like there was like what was I going to do? What was I going to do? And so it's my understanding that a lot of women that have been in my position have had similar responses. And there's people that will probably chime into that effect that are more educated about this topic than I am. And again, until you've been in my shoes, I don't know what to tell you. If you want to judge me for not berating these people the moment it happened, judge away. Should I have? Maybe. I don't know. All I know is that I'm doing it now. I'm coming forward with the story now. I have, text messages discussing the story dating back 2 years ago. And again, like I don't have what you guys want. I don't have some amazing response as to why I sounded cordial when I spoke to these people. Right. Other than that, they were in a position of power, and that I was not. Who the hell am I? Tell me. I mean, in this poker industry, how many people right now are taking to Twitter saying, I've known Nolan Dalla for 20 to 30 years, and he would never do that, and how many women are telling me, I completely believe you, but please don't mention my name. More than I can count. It is what it is. It's really, really, really sad. The number of professional female poker players that feel that they can't speak about this topic, I've actually lost track of. But I've been contacted my phone has been blowing up since I posted this blog by various entities, people asking for interviews, people telling me their story about, when they were sexually harassed, people, asking me questions. And then, You know, a lot of text messages from poker pros saying like, even one male poker player saying, I completely support you. And, you know, I really want to repost your blog and tell everybody that I can vouch for you and that you're a good friend of mine. But I'm afraid if I do, you know, some girl that I actually didn't do anything to might come forward and say like, oh, well, he's a hypocrite for this. Like, I mean, even which brings attention to the fact that men are often, I guess, afraid of these kinds of false accusations. I mean, it's not just women that have told me they can't, that are just, you know, I've got so much of this, you know, I got your back, I believe you, I want to vouch for you, ... But I, you know, have an affiliation with 888. But I'm going to be at the WSOP all summer, where Nolan Dalla is going to be. But I, you know, can't speak up because whatever. I mean, great for Nolan, great for all his buddies in the good old boys club that are coming to say, hey, Nolan would never do this. All I can tell you is what happened to me.
Okay. Let me look at here, see if I have any other questions written down. I'll take a couple comments from the chat, which I'm sure will be exciting. And then we can end things here. Let me just read about here, see what else I have. I guess you already answered a lot of these questions. You know, some of them were, why'd you talk about Poker Night in America in such a glowing manner after the fact? Obviously, you kind of already mentioned that with the other things in terms of why you kept communication, why you kept wanting to play, et cetera, et cetera. Let's see. Why it takes so long? Yep. Why'd you do that? Yep. Okay. Might post the pics. Okay. Yeah, I mean, we pretty much, I feel like we pretty much covered most of the things. I guess so after the fact, so after the Florida incident happened, I believe that you were still texting or emailing them wanting to keep playing on the show and wanting to get your buy-in.
I want to address that. I definitely want to address that. Okay. I'm looking at my notes in response to Nolan's post. So let me just go through those really quickly. These are notes that I wrote to myself last night. One of them just says that I've received criticism that the blog was too long and detailed and that it's unreadable. I've received criticism that I didn't include enough information and I should have included X, Y, and Z. Like, I know. It's just, that's the nature of humanity. That's the nature of humanity. That's the nature of whatever, internet feedback. The reality is I posted a blog post. I gave you what I could. I'm here to give you more. Whatever. I was told that Rush Street is waiting until after this podcast to release their statement. Rush
Street's typing up right now, Jaclynn. They're typing the shit right now as you're talking right now.
I don't know if that's true. That's just what I've been told. It might not, is it in my best interest to come onto this podcast right now? I don't know. All I know is that I'm telling you the truth, and that's why I'm not concerned. Nolan's initial response to my blog post was a tweet saying I was never thrown out of the Bellagio. He has since removed that tweet.
All right, so I want to comment on that particular comment you made. You allege that he got thrown out of the Bellagio in 2009. So
a credible source told me that. It's up to them whether it's up to them whether they want to come forward and expand on that. I mean, I think they might be watching. It's up to them.
Right. So a credible source, an unnamed source, told you that allegedly Nolan was kicked out of the Bellagio in 2009 for harassing a waitress.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, obviously, Nolan denies that fact, and I believe he stated that.
That's the very first thing he did. The very first thing he did after I posted my blog was deny that fact. That was his first instinct. I'm going to deny that fact. That's been removed from his Twitter. His 2+2 response says, I lost money in Pittsburgh. That's not true. Nolan is denying it. I'm looking at these notes to myself. He claims Nolan misbehaved. Going through on. We've already gone through the text where he tells me to come play. So his notion that he doesn't know how I showed up is completely absurd. He claims I continued to reach out to the show asking to play. I can tell you that nobody at Poker Night can provide a single email from me after the ladies taping in December in 2014 asking to come onto the show. I did not communicate with them about coming onto the show. Please show me all these emails where I started begging to come back onto the show because they don't exist. So please pull them up.
You want to see the receipts of this happening. You want to see.
I want to see them because they don't exist.
Right.
Well, let's see. I'm looking at what else. Yeah, he goes on and he posts like truncated parts of emails taken out of context in his 2+2 post. We're not going to sit here and go through every single email. He says 888 paid me to wear a patch. That never occurred. He claims he didn't know a settlement was offered. I was told explicitly by Human Resources and a guy named Marco Leal that they had talked to Nolan, repeatedly interviewed him, asked him if these things occurred. He said no, I was making them up a year later. They indicated to me that he knew a settlement was going to be offered, so I don't know why he's making the claim that like he just had no idea that this was whatever. Those are, I believe, my main notes regarding his 2+2 response. I would love if we could pull up the video that I linked to in my blog where Nolan urges people to come forward. You guys read people professionally, a lot of you. So watch this video. Tell me if you think this is somebody that's a credible source and that he's really that passionate about this issue.
Right.
I don't know. I think it would be a good thing to do right now. That's just my opinion.
I mean, yeah.
Just because a lot of people probably haven't watched it.
So you're mentioning watching the video that Nolan Dalla posted, or him and Matt Savage were having a discussion about I believe there was maybe the way women are, maybe the way comments, or I can't remember the exact specific of the video in question right now.
Yeah. There's a link to it on my blog, or I could send you another link right now, or we don't have to watch it. I just think it's a really entertaining video, given how absurdly hypocritical it is. And
that he's
I've
saying,
had a lot of people tell me that they, quote, believe my story based mostly on that video and its absurdity. So, I don't know.
I got to watch the video. I guess so. I'm just trying to think about where to go.
It's a short video. We can pull it up, or we don't have to.
So the video, he's stating that I guess
in the video, he begs women that have been harassed in the poker industry to come forth and call out their perpetrators.
So you think he does that because, it's obviously speculation. You think he does that because this was already in the works, sort of thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
He filmed it in Florida, apparently, which was right around the time that I was contacting the show, letting them know I wasn't staying quiet anymore. It was released right after I made a public statement that I was going to be coming forward with my story.
Okay.
I don't know. I just
think if you want to pull up I guess I'm just trying to figure out that. I'm trying to remember exactly what he said in the video because but just you're saying it's just contradictory. Basically, it's contradictory.
Yeah, we don't have to pull it up now. If you're watching the show and you're interested in the video, I'm not trying to get you to my blog. There is a link to it on my blog. You can probably find it another way. I don't know
I'll find it after the podcast, guys. I'll put the link in the.
Do that. That would be a good idea. Right. It's just something that I think warrants watching and examining. Somebody last night online found a blog post where Nolan Dalla discusses why females should not be cocktail waitresses. I don't know if you've seen that, Joey.
I definitely saw that blog post, and it's really, what can you can't really.
Again, like nothing should surprise me at this point, but like when I saw it, I was somehow surprised. I was like, this exists? Like,
yeah, I feel like that particular thing, the post that he made about the female bartender thing, certainly goes against the video that you talked about. He made the comment. It does, yeah. It certainly does not make him come off very well in terms of the way he may think about women, may deal with women, and that type of thing. Obviously, but at the same time, there's other people that have came forward, people that have known him for years. They haven't seen things like that. Yeah, it's a.
Another thing is that we're all professional estimators, right? Those of us that play poker. I find it incredibly hard to believe or comprehend or wrap my brain around the notion that there aren't other women that Nolan has had that he hasn't harassed, and that maybe some of these women are watching this now. And if you are, I mean, I urge you to come forward with your story. I certainly can't force you. And if you don't want to, I certainly understand your reasons for not wanting to, but I'm in your corner. I'll give you all the support you need. And I find it strange, some of the people saying that this seems so out of character for Nolan, because so many people have told me the opposite, that didn't surprise them at all. And so I'm getting a lot of mixed signals. It's just that people, this is like a power play here. Like, people that are big names are coming out and saying, oh, Nolan would never do this. People are secretly, texting and messaging me like, oh yeah, this is consistent with X, Y, and Z, or I completely believe it because I had another girl tell me that she got really uncomfortable vibes on the show. But again, I can't bring up her name. I had a girl tell me that she had an uncomfortable experience with a cameraman on the show, but again, can't bring up her name. It's sad and it's frustrating, and it's like, you ask why I don't come forward with my story. What's happening right now? Everybody's rah Nolan. I'm coming to bat for Nolan. Nolan wouldn't do these things.
I understand.
I've gotten a lot of support too, and again, I appreciate it. Thank you for everyone that sent me really, kind messages, and I've tried my best to respond to a lot of them. But it just doesn't seem like it's being super weighted with these like names that matter, saying like, I think Nolan did that because I've known Nolan to act that way around women at bars. It's like, to me, it's like a good old boys club that, where they're going to protect each other. And that's how I perceive it. So.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens from here. I mean, I feel like we'll see some other things said by women, other things said by some men maybe that dealt with the show. I mean, I don't think it's exclusive to just women. I'm sure there's men who've had bad experiences in different situations and stuff like that. So
sure. And again, I don't mean to sound like somebody that's trying to imply that, like, I don't think I do come across this way, that like all men in poker are these misogynistic like monsters. It's not the case at all. I have a lot of very, very close male friends that I've met through the poker community. I've had a lot of, most of the time, people are very respectful at the tables often. It's just that there are plenty of men who aren't. So I'm not trying to make any sort of broad generalizations about men. I guess I should clarify that. I don't know what else. I can only preemptively fight so many battles while I'm talking to you, but.
Yeah, guys in the chat, give me a couple more questions, and then we will talk a little bit more and wrap it up. I guess so. From this point on, where do you feel like yourself you go from here? Or do you want to stick around in poker? Is it something that's maybe turned you off the idea of continuing to play poker for a living? Go back to the medical field? I guess what's your?
No, I mean, yeah, no. My experience on a TV show doesn't affect my day-to-day, career in poker. It just doesn't. Right now that's what I'm doing. I play poker. Do I have plans on seeing patients at any point? No, that's really outside the scope of this broadcast. I volunteer. I do research for free for a medical school. I'll probably write books at some point. I have a lot of books in me on various topics. Right now, I play in South Florida. There's a lot of really profitable live games down here, and that's what I'm doing. And my experience in Nolan Dalla doesn't affect that at all. People keep asking me if I'm coming out for the series. 2 years ago, I came out. I played cash games for about 4 weeks. Last summer, I was running like a 5-10-25 at a casino, and it was going really well. And I saw absolutely no point in coming out to Vegas. And I don't really have any strong reason to come out this summer either, because I'm playing in really good cash games down in Florida. If you're a good player, I'm not inviting you here. Stay away. But don't actually, because I don't play tournaments, I don't have to really deal with Nolan Dalla. I don't really have to deal with a lot of these characters like some people do, I guess, more regularly. And so.
That makes sense. I guess the last question we'll have is about, some people are mentioning in the chat about why didn't you get in touch with a lawyer before, instead of writing the blog post, or why didn't you decide to go the legal route as opposed to the way that you did it?
I made the determination after I received legal correspondence with them, and I sat on it and I thought about it, and I made the determination that rather than file a lawsuit or accept settlement money, I was going to tell this story. And that's really what it boils down to. It wasn't a simple decision. It wasn't made overnight. It wasn't something that I didn't weigh all the pros and cons of. It wasn't something that was easy to make, but for what it's worth, to anyone out there that, is thinking about coming forward with something, I don't regret coming forward with this. I'm not scared of the repercussions of this, and I certainly I don't troll the hell out of me. I don't care. I've got stuff to do with my time. I can't even keep up with, every comment being made on 2+2 or Twitter or all these other forums. People keep sending me screenshots of stuff, my friends, and I'm looking at some of it and I'm trying to keep up. But in reality, this is taking time away from my life this week. I have not, spent very much time playing poker or working on my game or doing the things that I normally do with my time. And so this is taking away from my life. And, but despite I guess what people would say are the haters, and despite all the criticism, and despite whatever criticism is going to come after this interview, I stand by my decision to come forward. And I don't know, in a sense, it was cathartic to finally get it out there.
Can definitely understand that. Guys in the chat, we got a bunch of comments. Ryan Hurst says, Joe, if the accusations that matter, grab ass and motorboat, are for real, good for her for coming forward, because even though she's going to get flamed, it'll help stop it from happening again.
I hope that's true. I sincerely hope that's true. Thank you for that comment.
Let's see. Let me read some more comments here. No.
I don't know what you're looking at. I'm not looking at any of these comments.
No. I'm going to read those ones. No.
Yeah, I have no idea what you're looking at.
Brad Anderson, she seems pretty credible to me, and the text messages prove her accusations, IMO. Yeah, I mean, I feel like the text messages, as you showed, they show that the events did take place. So I mean, I don't see how you can even argue with that. It seems like the proof there is pretty big evidence to me.
All right. Well, I'm glad that it came across that way. I mean, I certainly felt that from the start. I kept in the back of my mind going, I don't know how anybody's going to say this didn't occur, because I have these texts, and if Capra wants to deny sending them, good luck if this goes to court in some regards, getting, sitting under oath and saying that you didn't send those messages. I mean, they're gonna be pulled by a cell phone carrier. You guys got no defense. You don't. I'm sorry. In my opinion, these text messages were sent. Capra knows he sent them. He hasn't made a statement saying he sent them or didn't send them. He's staying quiet.
Yeah. Justin said, did she ask anyone for 100,000? I think we discussed that earlier in the podcast, and yeah, we discussed that. And
I said that I did not ask a lawyer for 100,000 like Glance claims. I had very little communications with lawyers, and that various amounts were discussed with an HR guy named Marco Leal, and that ultimately I decided I wasn't taking money. So.
Well, I guess we'll see what happens from here. I think I look for, I'm sure, I mean, I feel like one of the things, I guess we go from here, you mentioned that this text message things, people are going to say they're not true, they're not real. Obviously you've got the proof there. So you got the proof that they're real.
I mean, I told you, I don't really know that this would be useful. We can pull them up on my phone too. I don't even know if I hold them up to the camera if we're going to be able to really see them well.
Right.
And again, I don't want to detach his name from the phone number. So that's something that, you know, should people decide that this is going to court, then fine. The cell phone carriers are going to, I guess, have to provide the transcripts. And
yeah, well, see what happens, guys. Stay tuned. If you want to follow updates, follow me on Twitter at JoeyGermon. You want to talk with Jaclynn, ask her any questions, give her your support, give her your comments. Her Twitter handle is at Dr. Jaclynn Moskow. I'll put the spelling of it in the description, or you can find the name in the title of the video. And yeah, I'm sure you can follow 2+2. I'm not sure which sites are really reporting on this right now, so I don't want to say go check out this site or that site because I'm not sure who's going to be posting about it. And but yeah, guys in the chat, I appreciate all the positive comments. All the negative comments, I wish I wasn't doing the podcast, so I could have permanently banned everybody from the chat. But, you know, I understand that's how things go sometimes, especially when you're doing the live streams and you got a lot of people in the chat. But yeah, Jaclynn, anything else you want to add? Anything else you want to say? Wrap it up with that, or anything else?
No, thanks, Joe. Thanks to those who tuned in with an open mind. Again, thanks for everyone who sent support. And I'm sorry to anyone that's also in this position. And if you want to talk to me about it, I will, you know, off the record, talk to any girl that wants to discuss this, because I already have been this week. So,
well, like I said, I really do appreciate you coming on the podcast. I appreciate you, you know, feeling comfortable enough to have, you know, have me ask you the questions or have me ask these things to you. And I guess from my position, you know, it's something where I'm certainly trying to figure out how to handle it. You know, this is a position I really have never been in before. And even when
I understand, Joe.
Right. Even when it comes to the idea of talking to men, talking to women, I mean, you know, it's not, none of us are really perfect. I feel like I've said some things, you know, probably out of line in the past. And I'm sure you've said some things probably out of line to certain other people in the past too. So it's like,
we all do. No, it's true. It's just about that line. You know, like I said, again, I probably tolerate more inappropriate comments when I'm playing live poker than I should. But yeah. That's very different than having somebody stick their head into my chest. That's very different than having somebody grab my ass. That's very different than having somebody tell me that the fact that I'm Jewish somehow makes me hotter. That's very different than people that are running a poker show behaving that way. Yeah, I guess we'll leave it at that. I don't know. Yeah.
All right, guys in the chat, much love. Don't know when I'll be back. I put out a lot of podcasts this week. You want to check it out there on iTunes, search Poker Life, watch it back on YouTube. And I think, yeah, probably be back sometime soon. I might do a follow-up video and update guys in the situation, what's happening. And that's it, Jaclynn. I'll talk with you later. Thanks
later. Bye, guys. Yeah, thanks, guys.
See you guys later. Peace out. Adios. Queremos.